Hello there. Image Alchemy is a technology company that develops and provides digital print solutions, including ink and large format cartridges. I'm here today with its MD, Paul Banks, to talk about a new development and why he's seeking crowdfunding for it. Paul, you say that Image Alchemy is on the verge of something big and that you're seeking crowdfunding to bring it to market. Can you just give us a potted précis of what the project's all about?
Well, I initially come from the photo industry, and I was appalled at the number of cartridges that I was going through in order to do some large format prints. And I was also later on shocked to hear of the amount of waste that was going into landfill and incineration. Some of the data that came out in the Recycler magazine pointed to the fact that around about 4.5 litres of crude oil are being used even for a small consumer cartridge for the carcass. In recognition of the appalling amount of waste that is going into landfill and incineration every year, I've developed the Smartridge, which is, I believe, the world's first electronic cartridge, which is smart. So you have a micro sensor at the top, and as the ink is depleted and being used, it then gives off an audible alarm, which you can hear, and hopefully, when the crowdfunding that we're going to do, this will also give an alarm to a smartphone. When you open the printer, you can see a brightly flashing LED. You take the refill pump to the cartridge, put it on, it attaches magnetically. The circuitry then says to the pump, I am a yellow, or I am a magenta, or cyan, or whatever, and it automatically pumps the right ink into the cartridge. When it's full, it switches the pump off and reverses the polarity on the magnet and disengages. So that is typically done on a consumer cartridge somewhere in the region of about 7 to 11 seconds. From the large format market, we've also developed a Smartridge, but on this particular one, we take the OEM chip off the original OEM cartridge, place it into our Smartridge here, and then we have a piggyback chip which comes down and reads the information and resets the OEM chip forever. You know, there's no limit on the amount of times it can be reset. And then simply to refill it, this is extending out of the printer, you then just refill it with one of our refills. So the cartridge never has to be taken out of the printer, so the wear and tear on the printer is a lot less. And after so many cycles, our piggyback chip will just simply reset the OEM cartridge back to its original condition. So you're not getting lots of purging done, and the waste tanks being filled up by unnecessary replacement of cartridges.
What's Image Alchemy's relationship with the educational establishments that you're working with, and how's that impacting upon the project?
When I first started on this project, I went to Leeds University's Department of Colour Chemistry, and we started looking at a number of established OEM inks and also leading third-party inks. And we did a lot of tests, and we got a lot of surprises with that. None of the inks were particularly good, and some of the OEM inks were restricted in terms of what we could use. So we then set about identifying the various constituents of the inks, which would give us longevity, a bright wide colour gamut, etc. And from that, we then went on, spoke with a number of ink manufacturers throughout the world, and we're now having a class-leading pigment, dye, and soon to be announced graduated black ink for doing black and white only prints by a leading German ink company.
Now, you personally won the Northwest Entrepreneur of the Year in 2013. How has that impacted upon what you're doing?
Well, it was a great help. It gave me a factory free of use for a period of 12 months. And I was then able to bring in various students and student graduates from the universities around Manchester to work on the problems associated with developing the Smartridge. So I had a team of people who were volunteers for the most part, one or two paid, but for the most part they were volunteer students working on the project. Manchester University's Department of Manufacturing, Salford University, looking at the marketing in Russia, for instance. Lancaster University helped in the marketing plan and in developing a business plan.
You are currently seeking crowdfunding for your Smartridge. When do you think you're likely to get that through, and how is that going to impact upon when it comes to market?
We went the traditional route to the bank and also to venture capital companies, and also I approached some manufacturers in Asia who might help me manufacture it, and was surprised in fact that they turned around and offered to buy the company. But when we started talking to them, it was pretty obvious that they weren't really interested in taking the product to market. In fact, I think they wanted to suppress it. So we then went back to the venture capital companies, but their view was, I received two written offers of investment, but they just simply wanted to sell the IP to the highest bidder, which would have the same effect of stopping our Smartridge from coming to market. In order to fully exploit it and to do it in the way that I want to, I've decided to go the crowdfunding route. That will give us greater flexibility. I'm also looking for a managing director for the business, and that will enable me to buy in the right person rather than being foisted with somebody else who I might not particularly want. I could get sufficient funding in from at least one platform, which is going to be the Indiegogo crowdfunding platform, and later on we might also then look at Kickstarter.
So when do you think we will see the first wide format Smartridges come to market, and for what machines?
It will probably be for the Epson machines, because they are the easiest ones to do. And that will be towards the end of 2015, early part of 2016. The large format cartridges are actually easier to do than the small format cartridges, because you've physically got more space in which to put the circuitry. The circuitry as well will be able to be programmed so that should the consumer want to purchase other inks, it will alert them to purchase the inks directly without them having to do anything. They can be alerted by way of their computer or whatever, or their smartphone, but the whole transaction can be seamless. So when they install this into a printer, for instance, or they first install it on their computer, they can be given the option to give their credit card details, their shipping address, etc. And then as it's going through, it'll say, we're going to run out of ink by next Tuesday. Do you want us to order more for you online automatically? And it'll be done, and they'll get an automatic confirmation.
So Paul, where do you think your R&D will take you next?
Okay, well, we're looking at the possibility of developing printers that don't have cartridges. They would have a fixed head similar to a memjet, and only the paper then moves underneath, or the media moves underneath the print head, which doesn't move. And the printer would have ink tanks in the back of the printer, which would then be topped up. So it would completely obviate the need for disposable cartridges altogether. And those would be water-based inks to start off with.
So have you a timetable for that?
The technology is well known, effectively, the memjet technology, but there are one or two small problems at the moment that we need to overcome. And once that's done, and depends on also the amount of crowdfunding that we bring in. Realistically, at around about 2016 for the first prototype systems to be developed.